Hello. Today is Tuesday, the 12th of November, 2024. And it's my day off. But I feel tired. But I got my, oh no, I didn't get, I do shift work. And so my roster changes week to week. And you can generally see quite far out what kind of hours or what time of the day you're going to be working in the future. And so between now and Christmas, so what's that, about a month and a half-ish, or a month, just under a month and a half, I'm working all early shifts, like meaning starting about 4 o'clock in the morning, which means getting up at about 3:30 in the morning, which is never easy. Even I've been doing this job for about 4 years, and getting up at 3:30 in the morning is never easy, especially when it's a changeable shift. It's not as though I get up, that's my permanent hours. I could do that for a week, and then the next week I'm doing lates and finishing at midnight, and so it is difficult to get a grasp of it, to match your body clock and get your sleep as it should be. And recently I've been having trouble sleeping, which is unusual for me. I'm actually usually a pretty good sleeper, as in I could adjust to those shift changes quite well. But I got sick about 2.5, 3 weeks ago. And since then, I just haven't been able to sleep well. It's been hard for me to fall asleep. And then I wake up often during the night. And so waking up at 3:30 and of only having like 4 hours sleep, or sometimes even less than that, is brutal. Brutal. The only way I can really describe it. Hopefully, my sleep seems to be getting a little bit better in the last week. But we shall see. It's almost like it's like a kind of sleep anxiety, where you have to wake up early, and so that makes it harder to fall asleep, and you kind of get frustrated with yourself. Like, I get into bed at like 8 o'clock, and I think, okay, well, if I fall asleep now, I have, that's 7.5 or 8 hours of sleep, and then I lie there for an hour. It's 9:30, and I think, well, okay, now it's 6 hours, and then kind of the hours tick by, and it's really not a great feeling at all. But anyway, this is what I'm looking at today. Something I got probably about 4 years ago. I picked this up, and I got this for 50 cents. Imagine that, a triple CD set of the Queen's Greatest Hits, volumes 1, 2, and 3, for 50 cents. I have owned that one on CD probably about 20 years ago. It was very common. I remember when I was a little kid, probably 5, 6, 7, my eldest brother, who's quite a lot older than me, he had this on cassette tape. And I remember me and my other brother used to listen to this, particularly the Flash song. Flash. And then I bought this on cassette in 1992-ish. 92, 93 would have been. It was kind of before I kind of really became into music in itself. I bought this. So I would have been in second form. So second form would be 92, 93, maybe 1993. No, 92. Anyway, it was the early 90s. That one I've never owned. But to get these all three together, because I've talked about Queen before, that's not where it should be, in that, who doesn't like Queen? This one's not where it should be either. You wouldn't find someone who genuinely does not like any Queen song. I can understand someone maybe a lot of Queen songs they don't like, or they're very overplayed. You know, it's just, they're so ubiquitous that you kind of can't escape them. And not just like in terms of music, just like a song like "We Are the Champions" is played. You know, it's sporting events and on media packages for sports, and it's something you could never listen to Queen in your life and still hear their songs a million times. So in that way, I can understand. And also, Freddie Mercury was very, what would you call, flamboyant and theatrical in his delivery, and so maybe some people don't like that as well. Maybe. However, I'm sure that everyone could find at least one Queen song they like. So this one here, the first greatest hits, kind of like an iconic picture with a black background. They're all wearing black. Brian May in the suit and tie, Freddie in the leather jacket, Roger Moore. Has he got like what, a leopard print collar? And John Deacon kind of towards the side. Looks like he's got a Queen patch sewn on his shirt there. Now, I think this was originally released in 81. I'm just going to guess. And like I said, we're growing up in the 80s. This seemed to be, you used to see this around a lot in people's houses and things. What is on that first greatest hits? Well, most of the songs you'd expect: Bohemian Rhapsody, Another One Bites the Dust, Killer Queen, Fat Bottom Girls. You know, that it really is amazing the number of, you know, hits doesn't even really do justice how massive these songs are. You're My Best Friend, Don't Stop Me Now. Those first 7 songs are some of the most played songs in late 20th century history. You know, like from 1980 through to 2000, these songs were just, like I said, inescapable. Save Me, Crazy Little Thing Called Love, Somebody to Love, Now I'm Here, Good Old Fashioned Lover Boy, Play the Game, Flash. Like I have a very early memory of that song. Like I said, me and one of my brothers used to listen to the cassette and listen to that song in particular. But remember in the old days, if you're as old as me, TV, well, yeah, this might not be something that's true in your country, but in my country, TV used to start and finish. It had starting hours and finishing hours. So TV would generally run from about 6 a.m. to the morning to about midnight. Nowadays, everything's 24 hours. The idea, TV is kind of, even it's itself kind of seems old-fashioned because everything's streamed and, you know, on devices. But especially on Saturday mornings, it would start early because kids would get up and watch cartoons from about 5:30. So before TV programming started, they would have something called teletext on the TV, which would just be like very blocky text, usually news headlines or weather, or I can't even really remember because there was different kinds of teletext. There was basic one, and then there was one you could actually go into and find more information. Our TV never had that. But anyway, it would have that teletext in the morning, and it would have music in the background playing. And I vividly remember waking up one morning very early. And again, this must have been before 6 o'clock in the morning. But, you know, kids, that's like my son. He wakes up about 5:30 in the morning. Me and my brother were up, maybe my younger brother as well, and we were waiting for the cartoons to start at like 6 o'clock. And I remember that song Flash playing in the background of the teletext before the cartoon started. And it sounded so, you know, kind of quite appealing to kids because Flash, I don't even know who Flash Gordon. For me, I thought Flash was superhero, you know, Marvel or DC Comics Flash, the guy who runs really fast wearing a red suit with the lightning bolt across his chest. This was Flash Gordon, who I wasn't really familiar with, but the song sounded so exciting. And they used dialogue clips from the movie, from the Flash Gordon movie. Flash Gordon approaching and all that kind of stuff. And the song sounded so like urgent or important, like it was the end of the world. And it was the most important thing being sung about this guy called Flash. Seven Seas of Rye and We Will Rock You. We Are the Champions. Again, We Will Rock You. That's kind of one of my early musical memories. Such a instantly catchy song. So appealing to everyone, but especially I think to kids, because again, my son, he loves that song. I'd say it's probably his favorite song. He knows all the words to it. It's so simple and straightforward, but powerful, that kind of appeals to anyone. I'm getting out of breath talking like this. Like I said, I'm very tired. Also, this morning I went to the gym. I restarted going to the gym in about September of this year. So about 2.5 months I've been going again after a couple of years break. And it's good, who likes going to the gym? You can tell it's good for you, obviously physically, but also mentally. I feel it kind of clears my brain a little bit, but I don't enjoy the actual process of doing the exercise. You hear some people like really love pushing. I can't stand it. Like running, cardio, like that, jogging. Oh, I can't think of anything worse. Don't mind walking. Good kind of power walking, speed walking is good, but running I can't stand. Rowing is okay, but then kind of weights, again, I don't actually enjoy doing it. It's like a means to an end, but some people really do enjoy doing it. Here we got the booklet, the Platinum Collection, the Queen kind of logo that they used on the second volume of their greatest hits. And this goes through all the tracks and gives a little write-up about each one. So yeah, Another One Bites the Dust came out in 80. So that's why this greatest hits must have been post 1980. Was there anything after 1980? Play the Game is 80. That's why I said I think it was 81, 82 that this was originally released. See if there's any information. No, of course there's not. So yes, it kind of shows the original, I guess, artwork for the single. Bicycle. Freddie going through the years. Early Freddie with longish hair, no moustache. And then we get, he's still got longish hair there. Then we get shorter hair but no moustache. Same there. And then I guess towards the end of this period, we get short hair, handlebar moustache, kind of his most recognizable form. That is represented in Chromate High, if you've ever seen that TV show, that Japanese cartoon. Then we go to Greatest Hits Volume 2, and this is one I bought with my own money at Christmas time. And you used to get money at Christmas from your grandparents or your uncles and aunties or even maybe your parents. Well, my parents didn't usually give me money at Christmas, I'd buy you a present. But I remember buying the cassette tape with Christmas money. Not as strong as Volume 1, Kind of Magic, Under Pressure. Okay, so Under Pressure is 81. So that again, that kind of plays into my theory that the Volume 1 was released in 81, because if an 81 hit is being put onto Volume 2, then yeah. Radio Gaga, I Want It All, I Want to Break Free. Again, as much as I said this is a kind of a weaker track listing, but there's still all so recognizable and massive hits. Headlong, The Miracle, Visible Man. That came in 1989. The memory I have of that song was when we were in Ireland. We went to kind of stay in Ireland for a little while when I was a kid, because my dad is Irish, I guess Irish heritage. and so he kind of wanted to go to Ireland and experience it, and so he went there, and we kind of lived there for a short while. And I remember that song being played on the radio in Ireland, The Invisible Man, which was we were there in 1989, and it is a 1989 song, so that makes sense. One Vision. There's a good video on YouTube of them in the studio doing, I guess, what album was One Vision on? One Vision. Was the album called One Vision? I actually think it might have been. During the studio sessions for that, it shows them kind of writing and performing that song and kind of working out in the studio. It's quite funny, and well, not funny, but interesting, I guess. My favorite song on this is track 9, Who Wants to Live Forever, which is taken from the Highlander soundtrack. Now, in saying that, I see that A Kind of Magic has also got artwork, which looks like it's from the Highlander soundtrack. It says here, written by Roger Taylor and taken from the album, released in the UK. It was produced by Queen and Dave Richards. The song was commissioned by director Russell Mulcahy for his feature film Highlander. How the fuck does that song fit with that movie? I have seen Highlander a couple of times, and I don't remember A Kind of Magic being used in it, and I can't think of anywhere it could be used, because that's quite a dark movie. If you've seen it, I'm not going to give anything away here. It's about a 40-year-old movie, but it's starts in kind of in Scotland, the Highlands, in like 300 years or 400 years, or maybe 300 years, I guess, ish. Maybe longer. And there's a guy who's immortal, and he never grows old, and his wife dies, and it's all kind of quite, that always stuck with me, that part. How he stays young, but his wife starts off young, the same age as him as a young woman, and then she kind of ages into middle age, and then kind of just before she dies, she's, like an old woman, and he's still a young, man. And that's where the song, Who Wants to Live Forever, kind of ties into. Kind of the sadness, you think, well, immortality would be a great thing. Well, I don't think anyone thinks that really, but kind of in some ways you do think that, but having to endure the loss, constant loss of people who you love, would be difficult, wouldn't it? And you're left all alone. And that's that. There's a montage from memory. I haven't seen the movie for about 15 years, but from memory, there's a montage of her growing older, and they play that song as she's growing older. And then there's a kind of instrumental part, which again is performed by Queen, which is underneath when he's kind of saying as she's dying. It's very quite like I said, it stuck with me for a long time, that scene. But that song's great. It starts off, and I never knew this until I watched the video. Brian May is doing the first vocal part, which once you know it, you instantly go, oh, of course, that's his voice is a lot thinner than Freddie's. But sometimes there's actually other songs like that. I was singing recently the Blur song, Coffee and TV. Now, this might sound like stupid, but for a long time I didn't know Graham Coxon was singing the verse of that. Once you know, again, you're like, oh, of course, that doesn't sound like Damon Albarn at all. But sometimes your brain just thinks, well, this is Queen, it must be Freddie, or this is Blur, it must be Damon. But anyway, all getting quite campy. I'm just seeing if it's got the what artwork. Oh yeah, there it is. Who Wants to Live Forever? There he is, MacLeod and his young wife at the time, played by Christopher Lambert. Now, another amazing thing about Queen is that they all wrote songs. So many bands, obviously, there's a main songwriter or a songwriting partnership, and they write the vast majority. But if you go through and look at the hits, at least, there's quite a spread of writers. Like A Kind of Magic, it said was Roger Taylor. Who Wants to Live Forever, Brian May. A lot of them they wrote together. I know John Deacon did another one, Bites the Dust, and You're My Best Friend. I think he did that one as well. And then Freddie did lots as well. But it's quite an amazing kind of partnership they had, that they could spread the writing around like that and all have kind of huge hits. Released September. The poignant ballad was composed by Brian in a car after the band had first viewed the rough cut of the film Highlander. And because one of the central themes of the movie, became one of the central themes of the movie. The video for the single featured the full National Philharmonic Orchestra, 40 choir boys, and 2,000 candles. It gave Queen yet another top 30 hit, climbing to 24 in the UK. So just kind of scenes from some of that's the one from Who Wants to Live Forever, with the candles and the choirs and the whatnot. Hammer to Fall, Brian May. Friends Will Be Friends is Freddie Mercury and John Deacon. There's kind of like little partnerships within the band as well, writing things. Really, that's the more you think about it, the more interesting that is, that they kind of could do that. So many bands can't do that. So many bands, there's one person who dominates, and the ego, or it's not even necessarily their ego, it's just if a band has found success with a primary songwriter, they don't want to kind of jinx that or risk giving it to someone else and maybe producing lesser songs. So you can kind of see that, but sometimes it is like an ego thing or kind of a dictatorial thing. Like I was reading about Michael Ackerfeld in Opeth, and I didn't know this, that the previous keyboardist, Per Wiberg, I think is how I pronounce his name, he left the band, and whenever they talked about it, it was mentioned, it always sounded quite acrimonious. And someone wrote, I'd read online something, someone said, yeah, he was fired because he wanted more writing credits, and he had a secret meeting with the other members of the band or something like that. And Michael found out about it and fired him, kind of almost like an attempted coup or something. So we come to disc 3, which is this one, where we see pictured of the 3 remaining members and Freddie in the background as kind of like symbolizing he has passed. Now, obviously, this was released post his death. It says here 2000. I'm not sure if that's the actual when it was released, but quite possibly it is. Now, again, obviously, this is going to be the weaker or weakest of the 3 greatest hits, because their hit-making capabilities did fade over time, and certainly post his death, the things they released weren't getting as anywhere near what the things in their prime had been getting. The Show Must Go On, Under Pressure, some sort of mix. Barcelona, which he did together with, what's her name, Montserrat Cabal. They did for the Barcelona Olympics, but he passed away before the Olympics came, which is always sad. Too Much Love Will Kill You. Written by Brian May, Frank Musker, and Elizabeth Lammers. Performed at the Queen tribute, Freddie Mercury tribute. What's this one? Somebody to Love. Is that completely without Freddie? I said again, this is the live version. So obviously the original was released in '76, and they redid it with. This is the one you hear the most, the one with George Michael. But I thought it was someone else. They had someone else. I'm thinking of Don't Let the Sun Go Down on Me, which is George Michael and Elton John. But obviously, yeah, this one's just George Michael performing it at that Wembley tribute concert. Heaven for Everyone. This was released as a single. It got to number 2 in the UK charts. Las Palabras de Amor.
A lot of these, not familiar at all. The Great Pretender, which was a cover that Freddie did, originally by the Platters. Prince of the Universe, Another One Bites the Dust. What's this? This must be some sort of it's done what with the Fugees, or at least two of the guys from the Fugees. Okay, so the last ones, the last two. These are the Days of Our Lives, which was on the that was on Innuendo, I believe, and Thank God It's Christmas, which is some sort of Christmas song I didn't even knew existed. That was the last video they ever did. That's a shot taken from the video. There's actually a photo back here, which is that's them in the video. And if you ever watch the video, you'll know that Freddie looks really quite ill. A lot of it, not a lot of it. Some of it is because doesn't have his moustache anymore, and so maybe that kind of would hide some of the gauntness. But he does look very gaunt, skinny and hollowed out. And I think the video was done kind of only months, less than a year before he passed, and he was really quite sick in his last year. There's a book I read. When would it have been? Would have been about a year ago now, probably over a year actually. I've talked about this in another video. It's a biography, well, not really a biography, I guess almost like a tell-all by Freddie's last boyfriend, Jim Hutton, who was an Irish guy. And depending who you talk to, some people say, well, he wasn't really his boyfriend. He was just kind of like some would say he was just the gardener. And some would say, well, they were in a relationship at one point, but then Freddie moved on, but kind of felt sorry for him and so kept them around. And there's all sorts of kind of contrary things. But from what the book said, Jim Hutton wrote, they were close right up until his death. They were, what do you call it? Lovers or boyfriends or together in a relationship until Freddie's death. Like I said, there are people who counter that or deny that, and there's all sorts of kind of like quite not very nice things said about the guy, to be honest, by some people. His book seems, he doesn't like make any like salacious or scandalous things or even claim to be more than what he was. He's quite straightforward in his description of their I guess I'm crying outside. In the description of their relationship, it's like they met in the kind of the mid 80s. They got into a relationship quite quickly and they lived together. He lived with Freddie, he traveled with Freddie, and there's photographic evidence of them together in Japan and all over the world. And so you'd say, well, yeah, they were definitely close. Freddie was kind of notorious for being difficult to get close to. There was Mary Austin, who kind of inherited everything after he died and kind of took over a lot of the kind of rights for his legacy. And so she's got to kind of, or has been able to kind of, what do you call it? Dictate how things were. And that's how that guy Jim Hutton seems a little bit, the way he never really comes out and says she was a bitch and she did this, but he does kind of hint or imply certain things that basically she didn't like him. And then after Freddie died, Freddie had wanted Jim to be taken care of properly and given not everything or anything like that, but given something and allowed, but she kind of just booted them all, him and a couple of other friends out. And then whenever he was talked about subsequently, he was kind of like, well, he was just, he was one of Freddie's playthings, but he wasn't anything serious. But it doesn't kind of match up with the reality of how things were. Like I said, of like photos and the fact that he was living in Freddie's house in London when he died. He was there when he died. And I can't imagine, Freddie doesn't seem like the kind of person who would allow someone just to hang around. Which is not to say they didn't have troubles in their relationship, because it sounds like they did have like kind of breakups and kind of like any relationship would have. But it's kind of interesting. It's kind of more of a kind of gossipy, really. As I don't mean like I said, it's not really salacious in any way, but it's, if you're interested in the music, it's not really focusing on that at all. And it kind of really doesn't even really mention the other guys in Queen. But he's actually, when he does mention them, he's quite positive about them. He says they were kind of respectful and kind and friendly and whatnot. And but yeah, if you're interested, I guess, in that last part of Freddie's life and maybe getting a little bit of insight into him, I would recommend that book. But I know a lot of people are like, well, it's just, you know, gossipy garbage or tabloid garbage, which maybe there's some truth to it. But like I said, really, he doesn't go into all these salacious details and things. It's very quite pedestrian in his descriptions of things. The way that he describes Freddie is kind of as a he just wanted love. He wanted to be cared for. He wanted love. He was quite a homebody. But at the same time, there's also the other part, you know. I guess, yeah, in some ways not really surprising. Like there wasn't anything like, wow, he was like that. Or it kind of was described in the kind of the way that I would imagine, but maybe a little bit, yeah, I don't know. It's been a while since I read it, so maybe I'd have to read again to really remember properly. Anyway, that's half an hour of me yabbering about Queen. 3 discs, the Platinum Collection, for 50 cents. Dear Lord. And really just that many great songs on one package is, you know, I think I talked about, it was actually a long time ago, I did a video, I got 2 other Queen albums. I've got Innuendo and This Must Be Heaven, or Made in Heaven, the posthumous album. And I said, you never see Queen albums around. You know, there's stuff from the 70s and 80s. It's just, those 2 ones I bought are the only 2 I've got. So you really have to make do with the greatest hits type things, because you just never see their albums, for secondhand at least. I guess people don't want to donate them. They want to hold on to them. All right, we'll leave it there. Thank you very much.